Oh,
With
can you hear us now, Rachel?
Oh, my friend Joel is here.
Okay,
Jessica
great.
can hear us.
I think we got the sound and the video back. And looks like our viewers are coming back in now, so that's good.
All right.
I'm gonna be able to see my cursor, so sorry about that, but you know, making sacrifices. Yes.
Oh yeah.
We don't see the debate. I see just the black screen and just us.
You don't see the debate.
Oh, now it just shut up.
You can see
We
it now.
see
Because I have you
one
on a different screen.
Yeah,
just
we
to
can see
double
it.
check.
Oh, you mean
It's-
on the live stream? You can see it. Yeah, I just now brought it up, and I
Cool.
am just going to trim off the edges here. And then... And we still have a few more minutes, it looks like. So that's good. Sorry we got to miss most of the discussion, guys, but so one of the things I was going to ask was, what do we think of Chris Wallace as a moderator? Because he's had some confrontations with Trump, but he's still a conservative. He's still a Fox News host. Do we think he's going to be a fair moderator? Who has thoughts on that?
No.
Josh, you say no?
I think he's
Why do
gonna
you
be
say
for
no?
Biden.
You think he's going to be for
I
Biden?
think Fox is trying to. I think Wallace is kind of leading the charge with Fox. I think they're ready to throw Trump under the bus to save their brand for the future. So I think Wallace is going to come out guns blazing, honestly.
I don't know. In the primaries, and I just finished making a whole video about Fox for this Saturday, but in the primaries, Fox went against Trump because they didn't like him. And then they had to turn that back. So, because their viewer base was abandoning them. And I can't imagine,
our organization
can everybody hear the guy on the screen talking?
Shone brighter than during this pandemic.
No.
The pandemic has brought out the best of our
I
organization.
And it's
our
like one frame every
caregivers of our
second.
city and
Yeah.
our state. Through partnership and collaboration, we see how much we can accomplish when we work
Okay,
together.
at least they can hear
And
it
we
in
are
there.
particularly proud of our partnership with Case Western Reserve University. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague and friend, President of Case Western Reserve University, Barbara Snyder.
Thank you, Tom. Case Western Reserve is honored to co-host
so sorry
this
about all these
presidential
technical
debate with our
difficulties,
partners
everybody.
at Cleveland Clinic.
That
and
is not
delighted
how
to
I
show
meant for this to
you
go.
this spectacular space we
Oh, you're
created
right.
together.
Hey, this is why we
Research
test
has
before.
long shown that team-based
Yes, I mean,
healthcare
we should-
leads to
Okay.
better outcomes for patients.
Can you guys
Yet
hear
nearly
that
every
now?
academic institution continues to prepare students in separate
No.
buildings,
No?
literally in silos.
Super
Yet
faint.
after
Like I
spending
just hear like
years
little
learning
bzzz,
only with
like a
students
little
from the
mouse.
same profession, doctors with doctors, nurses with nurses, and so on.
Maybe go
They
ahead
are
and pull it
suddenly
up on
expected
another
to know how
tab
to
just in
work
case
in
I can't
teams
figure that out.
once they get their diplomas.
But
We knew there had to be a better way,
I'll try to
and
figure it out
together
for the next
we
few
built
minutes.
it. When not filled with a stage and seats,
What do
this
you other-
atrium
what does
gives
everybody else
hundreds
think
of
about, like,
students
Wallace?
a huge
Do you
open
think he'll-
space to study, talk,
Partial
and simply
or-
be together.
Josh, Sylvia, you have
The
any thoughts
entire
on
building
Wallace?
provides multiple spaces.
Well, I
for
said
them to
earlier,
come
like, I
together,
think he's.
supported by an
What's the
academic
point of having
model
the
that
guy there if he says
emphasizes
he's not going to fact check?
opportunities
So
to
he's just
learn
going to read
with
questions and that's
and
it?
from
Like,
one another.
dude, come on.
Add state-of-the-art technology, and we know our graduates will be uniquely prepared to excel in team-based care.
Max and Jordan, are you
ultimately
related
to
or
lead it.
how are you together in
Along
this?
the way, Cleveland Clinic
endeavor?
and Case
Know each
Western
other.
Reserve also learned
Just
from
very
one
close
another. Among the most
friends.
valuable lessons
We used to
was
be
that
we used to live in the same
through
apartment
collaboration,
complex.
we achieve far
guys,
more than either of us
If you
could
go into
achieve
YouTube,
alone.
C-SPAN is
Thank
streaming
you,
the
Tom,
debate,
for
so
being such a
probably-
wonderful colleague
Probably
and
just pull it
friend.
up in a different tab
Thank you to the
here.
Commission for giving both of our organizations the opportunity to
not
be
the
part of
audience,
this
but
historic
you
event.
guys,
It is
so.
a true privilege to contribute to our nation's democratic process. And thank you all for watching.
All right, so I think we have all of that sorted out. So how does Biden win this debate? What do we think should be his strategy for
Thank you, Tom and Barbara,
earlier
very
that it
much.
shouldn't be a fact
Most
check
valuable
or it
player
shouldn't be
award for
him
this
trying to
evening
fact
goes
check
to
Trump,
Toby
so what should it be?
Cosgrove. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. One
I think he's going to have to go
housekeeping
after
bit
some of the issues
for
I
the
just said and
audience.
appeal to
As
some of
soon
the
as this debate
Republican
is over, if you
values,
please
I
remain
guess you could
seated,
say,
you'll
or
be
some of the promises
shown
that he hasn't
which
delivered
way
on.
to exit.
I said a couple of them
Please stay where
earlier.
you
Like
are
I said, he
until
hasn't.
that
He's
happens.
actually he hasn't done anything for
So
gun
now,
owners. He's
introduce
actually
Chris
objectively
Wallace,
made it worse.
the moderator of this evening's debate.
Forgot what the other thing I just said was, but he's increased spending. He said he was going to pull people out of the Middle East, but I think if I read correctly, I've been honestly trying to stay away from the news a little bit for my mental health's sake. But I think we're sending more troops into Syria or something like that.
All right, it looks like Chris
And it's
Wallace
like-
is getting talking, so let's see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
I can't hear him on my side.
Is it me or can nobody? I have him in a different screen. I can't hear him.
Yeah, no, I think that
Oh yeah,
that's on their side now.
What?
Yep, C-SPAN is no audio.
All right, so that one's not on me, guys.
That's beautiful.
Well, okay. Well, while he does that,
So what do we do?
there's a poll that came
You know
out
what?
recently that said that 70% of Americans will not have their minds made up by the debate, and 44% of Americans said that this debate will not affect their decision at all. There's already voting happening, and most people, it seems, have already made up their decision. So are these debates still important this year, do you guys think? What do you think?
I think it's still important to show the illusion that we still have a democracy in this country.
Mhm.
But yeah, as far as swaying opinion, I think the majority of Americans
made.
that will be participating in the election have already made up their minds.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to imagine after all of this how someone would not know what they're looking for right now. But the polls consistently, there's a few percent of Americans that don't know what's going on. That it's usually people who have very little information. They don't watch the news regularly. And I don't know how they could have gone through 4 years of this and not know. But I also don't know how they could have someone could have gone through this and still want Donald Trump to be the president. So maybe I just don't understand these people. Nonetheless, I think it's a good moment
Yeah.
for Biden to define himself, I think. Because a lot of people don't know much about him, and millions of people will be watching this, so maybe this is his opportunity to define himself.
Right, because I think back in 2016, I think it was Hillary's election to lose. I think it was the most
And lose she did.
winnable election in U.S. history.
Oh, looks like C-SPAN's got their audio back, so that's good.
All right, sweet.
Applause.
Gross.
Yay.
Or maybe, you know what I bet? I bet Chris Wallace's microphone isn't working because I still can't hear him talking, but I can hear the applause.
I can hear this ad.
Yes.
All right.
So you were
But you asked,
talking
though,
a
what
second
the point
ago.
was.
You were talking a second ago about how Trump wins this, Jordan. Josh, how do you think Biden wins this debate?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt Jordan. I didn't know. Did you have some more thoughts, Jordan, on that? Or
I was just talking about Hillary Clinton. I was saying she lost back in 2016 because she didn't go to the swing states. She didn't do enough to appeal to those Rust Belt voters,
She
and
didn't
that's
go to
what decided the
Wisconsin
election.
once during the general.
And she was going home. That
Right,
also didn't
and then
help.
she said Bernie didn't do enough for her, and he repeatedly gave speeches for her and went to multiple states that she would not go to. So, got to get that message across to the Rust Belt. Biden does to win the election.
What do we think of the segments? Obviously, there's been a lot of issues about the idea that there's no climate change segment, and we were talking before we went live about how one of the segments is called Race and Violence in Our Cities.
Oof.
Do we think that's indicative of that this is going to be targeted this way, or do we think that's just a bad name?
It's a Fox News, dude. choosing the segments. Come on.
Chris Wallace does work for Fox
Those
News.
people are climate change deniers. We have Jordan and Max and I are all on the West Coast, and we probably were all locked up in our homes for 2 weeks straight because we couldn't breathe outside. And
Yep.
breathing was
One
a
part of-
privilege.
on fire.
We were affected by smoke though.
You were?
Yeah, we have smoke here.
You're higher up on the mountain now, so that makes sense.
We
Yeah,
had
I got out of California
10 blocks
in
away
time.
from my house. People were on evacuation level 1. 10 blocks away.
Yeah, my
The
previous
air
address was in
quality
San
meter
Jose.
could not go high enough.
Yeah, my old roommate.
Yeah, no, I have no time for.
The air was all full of smoke in San Jose. There was one New York Times columnist that said if only everyone in the media could spend one fire season in California, no one would be questioning climate change anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Thomas Fire was insane. That went right through our town.
what
That
people,
was 20 feet from where I now live, literally.
what people don't understand that don't live out west. They don't understand fire season is like out west, and it doesn't rain at all during the summer.
And it's not only that, but also there was 5 storms, something like that, lined up in the Atlantic a few weeks ago. For only, I think, the first time or maybe the second time in all of history. There's droughts. There's entire countries, Tuvalu, the Maldives, entire countries sinking below the ocean. I really hope that they get the Chris Wallace's microphone sorted out here. But I promise you guys that's
Good
not
evening from the
an
Health
argument, I don't
Education
think.
campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News,
how do
and I
you-
welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates
All right, I'm glad they
between
got him
President
sorted.
Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission
And
has
here, one of
designed the
you guys,
format
it's echoing. You need to turn
roughly
down your volume.
15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4
I wonder how
debates.
Trump will handle not
As a
having an
precaution, both
audience.
campaigns have
He usually
agreed that
feeds off
candidates
the audience, but
will
it'll
not
only be
shake
40,
hands at the
60,
beginning of
some, a
tonight's
very
debate.
small number of people in the
The
audience.
audience
this time.
here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say.
Did he say no
No
booze?
noise except
He
right
said no
now,
cheers, no booze,
as
that
we
they
welcome the
promised to remain
Republican
silent.
nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic
Oh,
nominee,
like booze,
Vice
not
President
booze.
Biden.
Yeah, no. No boo.
I was like, what?
And there they are.
I hope they taught me cocaine as well, so that will.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Be here, Biden. How you doing, man? Is it their old buddies?
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night.
That's
so
why I
let's
could
get
never be a
going. Our
politician. I
first
could not
subject
say
is
hello to
the
somebody
Supreme Court.
like that.
Did we
President
lose
Trump,
Jordan?
you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to
Yes, we lost
succeed
Jordan.
the late
Hopefully he
Ruth
tunes
Bader
back in here in a
Ginsburg
second.
on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your
Ian, is it too
obligation
loud
and
for my
the
mic
Senate
so I can still listen
to
to it?
consider
Is it coming
a
through too
nominee to
strong?
the
I can't
court.
hear you, Josh.
Vice
I can't
President
hear
Biden,
your
you say
end
that
of it.
this
I
is
can
an
hear your
effort by the
voice, but
president and Republicans
Okay,
to
that's
jam
good.
through an appointment and what you
I'll
call
be right back.
an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make, and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate.
That's true, but
We have a
Obama
White
also
House,
won the election.
and we have a phenomenal
Welcome back, Jordan, Max.
nominee, respected by all.
Your microphone is off, Jordan, Max.
academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. even if we did it after the election
There we go.
itself. I have a lot of
And
time
we're back.
after the election, as you know. So I think that she will
Just to
be
be clear, this
outstanding.
is a
She's
justice
going
who
to
would
be,
abolish the
as good
Affordable
as
Care Act,
anybody that
abolish
has served
unions,
on
and
that court.
abolish Roe
We
v.
really feel
Wade.
that.
So
We have a professor
that's who
at
we're
Notre
talking
Dame,
about
highly
when he talks
respected by
about
all, said she's the
her being
single
very
greatest
reasonable.
student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse
They
also.
did. They elected
Definitely would
Barack
happen in
Obama.
reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already.
Sideways.
The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have
All
already
right, we're
voted.
back.
And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay. Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully.
Can we have audio or not?
At some
Yes, we're
point,
going to have to.
10
Otherwise,
years
we're not
ago
going to hear
or
any
so,
of it.
she said the president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that
Does
you're
anyone
going
know
to
what the
extinguish
actual number is?
180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialism.
Number of
You're
what?
going to socialism.
This is
People with
we're now into,
pre-existing
gentlemen,
conditions.
we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that
According to the
we
Department of Health and
expand
Human
Obamacare.
Services, it's between
And we
50 and
increase it. We do not
129 million
and
people.
One of the big
So
debates we had
100
with
million
23 of my colleagues trying
is
to
well
win the
within that
nomination
range.
that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your party
is-
has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist.
He's talking about
Party is
Bernie.
me.
Socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
Trump
the
is
they're gonna
talking about
dominate
Bernie's
you, Joe.
plan,
You know
but
that.
I
the
am the
public
Democratic
auction wouldn't
Party right
eliminate
now.
Medicare,
The
wouldn't
platform of the
eliminate
Democratic
private
Party
Party
insurance.
is what
And that's
I,
what Biden
in
has
fact,
endorsed.
approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban.
All right, gentlemen.
Europe,
I would point out
which
how
was heavily
every
infected.
other
You would have
country
been
in the
much
world
later,
has
Joe.
lower.
Mr. President,
Much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not going to be able to
President, as a
China has
moderator,
4 times our population and
we are
only
going to
like
talk about COVID in the next
83,000
segment, but
deaths or
go
something like
ahead.
that. Or,
Let
no,
me
83,000
finish.
cases.
The point is
actually.
that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
it's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald,
Yes,
you
we
don't
do know her view on Roe v.
view
Wade.
on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time.
Josh Hawley said he won't vote for any
on health care.
nominee
and then we'll
that
come
isn't
back to
against
Roe
Roe v. Wade.
All right.
And he's
Mr.
voting for her.
President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
By replacing it with nothing.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace
We'll have it in 2
Obamacare,
weeks.
But you have never in these 4 years
He says
come
for
up
6
with a
months.
plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of the individual
and when I finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I-
worst
I
part of
didn't ask,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that
just
was
This
the
is
worst
exactly
part
right.
of
Let me ask my
Obamacare.
question.
Well, I'll ask
Just
Joe.
Exactly.
The
no.
individual
Exactly
mandate
right.
was the most unpopular
Vice
aspect of
President,
Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing
Well,
conditions
Chris.
5
Either.
days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That
Oh yes, be
there's nothing
defensive, Trump.
symbolic.
That's great
I'm
for
cutting
your
drug
image.
prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give
care.
you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will, if I can
sorry.
ask you the question,
According
it will
to-
What your
end
party says, by the way.
it will end private insurance and create a
Reuters,
government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid.
$64
They
to
can get that free
$5,705
in most states, except governors who want to
2012.
deny people who are poor Medicaid.
Ian,
Anyone
can you
who
turn on
qualifies
closed
for Medicare
captions
would-
on the stream?
Yes, I can.
Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
Will
we
you-
call it.
will
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
you saying
I'm
you
not going
didn't
to listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not
They
by
should
much.
ask Trump to define socialism and
I'm here
communism.
standing facing you, buddy.
Pocahontas.
Is he seriously
Left 2
talking
days early, you
Pocahontas
lost
right
every
now?
primary
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very
here's the
lucky.
deal.
The idea that
I got
Joe
very lucky. I'm
Biden
gonna
is
get very
a
lucky tonight
socialist
as well.
is
And tonight I'm going to make
anyone
sure,
who can
because
believe that
here's the
is
deal.
way down
Here's the
the
deal.
far right
The fact
rabbit
is
hole
that
already.
everything he's saying so far is
I mean, that
simply
would be
lies.
awesome,
I'm not here to
but
call out his lies.
it's
Everybody
just
knows
not
he's
reality.
a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your
I-
class.
It, like, doesn't that just
I
go
wanna
to show,
make
though,
sure-
it wouldn't matter
Can you
who
let
the
him finish,
Democrats
sir?
nominate?
He
They're
doesn't
going to
know how
call
to do
anybody
that.
a socialist
He
or a
has-
communist.
you know,
Doesn't-
Exactly. It's
Piece of
that's a
press.
Buttigieg
Wrong
said
guy,
during
the wrong
the
night at the wrong
primary.
time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders.
And no one's going to
and
believe
whole
this. He's an
idea-
old
let him-
white man
There
who was
is
known
no
as the moderate
manifesto,
candidate.
number
Please let
one.
him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
You
two.
just lost the left.
Number two.
You
Yeah,
just
who is
lost the left.
around for
agreed
the
with
creation of the
Bernie
Green
Sanders
State
on a
Trump as
plan.
running mate.
How-
We've had
folks,
100 plus days
absolutely
continuous
Folks, do you have any
protesting.
idea what this clown's doing?
Mr.
Do you have any idea?
Socialized medicine.
He wrote the
President,
crime
I'll tell you
bill.
what,
This is not a
he
communist.
is not for any help for people needing health care because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
He wants to
Number
have
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how-
He's been promising a better
He has never offered a
healthcare plan for how
He
long
has
now?
never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but
22
probably
million.
doesn't.
According to
Gentlemen, you
the
realize that you're
budget
both
office.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time.
and it's too expensive.
22
Let the
million
president-
people
go
are
ahead, sir.
covered by Obamacare.
is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what
So
his people
we
said.
we
Most
do
people
want to
think
get rid of
premiums
it.
went down.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have
against
one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel.
They better.
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
you're a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot
is
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
That
is
was
on your
really a
right.
productive
Gentlemen,
segment.
I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
He's
ended,
not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
Second subject.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So Let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine,
Chris Wallace mentioned the
experts say
number.
that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said,
Ian, has anybody ever
and
told
done
another
so
candidate
far, and
who's
what you
sitting
have said you
president
would
to shut
do
up on
starting in
camera? That has to be
2021,
one
why
of those
should the American
monumental
people
moments.
trust you
I
more
couldn't
than
be sure
your
whether that
opponent
happened.
to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape.
Yes,
acknowledging
yes.
he knew it.
Infamous.
He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back in
it's 2
March
minutes.
exactly
it's so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It cost a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in.
You should get out of your bunker.
Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if
Wait,
we would have listened to
you have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was
he
China's
says it's
fault.
China's fault.
And by the way, when
I'm
you
going to
talk
look up
about
what the
numbers, you don't
numbers
know how
are
many
right
people
now.
died in China.
But China
You
has
don't know how many
had
people died in Russia.
far
You don't
fewer
know how many
deaths. And in
people
fact,
died
if
in
we
India.
had the
They don't
same per
exactly give
capita
you a straight
numbers,
count,
we
just so
would
you
have had
understand.
fewer than
But
1,000.
if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have
unrelated to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No, just
Wait a
sir,
minute.
It says 2 minutes.
But
You
Ian,
didn't
do
think
we
should have
trust the
closed our
numbers from
country
China?
Because you thought it was too. It was
That's
terrible.
literally what I was
You
about to
wouldn't have
say.
closed
I
it
don't
for
trust the
another
numbers
2
from
months.
China and
By
India.
my doing
Max,
it,
I,
in fact,
Jordan,
Fauci
I like
said,
you.
I'm sure they're not
President
off by a
Trump
factor of
saved thousands
200,
of lives.
though, right?
Many of you Democrat governors said,
I mean,
President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a
People's
phenomenal
Republic of
job.
China.
Most of them said that. In fact,
Big on
people that
human
would not be
rights.
necessarily on my side said that.
Well, I'll tell you, I have family who lives in China,
We did.
and
We got the gowns.
things
we
are
got
basically
the
back to
masks.
normal
We made
there.
the ventilators.
They
You
don't
wouldn't
even
have
have to
made
wear masks
ventilators.
in
And
most
now we're
cases
weeks away from
anymore.
a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying.
The official
We've done a
numbers
great
for
job.
China are
The only thing that haven't done a good job,
4,634
and that's
deaths.
because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good
Now, I mean,
press.
in
They
China,
give me
though,
bad press
I would assume
because
that
that's
it's
the
the
way it is,
same with wearing
unfortunately. But let me
masks,
just tell you
almost out of
something. I don't care.
courtesy
I've
and
gotten used to it.
general sense in
But I'll tell you,
cities
Joe, you could
anyway,
never
right?
have done the job.
They
that we
only
did.
have to wear
You don't
masks
have
when
it
they're
in your
going to
blood. You
places
could
with,
have never done
with
that job.
crowds now, like
I
when
know
they go
how
to
to do the
malls or
job.
sports
I
games,
know
things
how to
like
get the
that.
job
Well, you didn't do
done.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a
Right.
disaster. Your own
And I
chief
think
of staff
too,
said you were a
there's just
disaster.
a culture
14,000 people
to
died, not 200,000.
in the Asian
Of
countries
very
just wearing
economic
masks.
Sir, you
They have a
made-
different
Far
discussion.
There
less
was nowhere
lethal
because
disease.
You made a point. Let him
SARS
answer.
And
epidemic,
there was
I think.
no one.
That's what I've heard a
no,
lot
we
of
didn't
people
shut down
say.
the economy. This is his economy.
exactly.
Also, the whole
He's
issue
shut
of
down.
air
The
pollution in
reason it's shut
China.
down is
People
because,
already wear
look,
masks a
you
lot of the
folks at
time
home, how
anyway.
many of you got up this morning
Yeah,
and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID?
If we have
How many of you were in a situation
here?
where
Can
you
you guys
lost
hear
your
that?
mom or dad and you couldn't
I
even
can hear
speak to them? You had a nurse holding the
Not too
phone up
loud.
so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And,
You would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held it. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save.
No, people should be
half
very
those numbers.
skeptical of any
Just a
vaccine
mask.
that's rushed
And
out
by the
before the
way,
election.
in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine,
Also, keep in mind a
we're for
vaccine will
vaccine,
take
but
months
I don't
and
trust
months
him
and
at all,
months to
nor do you. I
distribute.
know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
The new
And
FDA
for people to trust
And
Okay.
by the
the
way,
vaccine.
FDA
Let me-
requirements
let me
make
move
it
on
likely
to
that a vaccine will get
questions
approved
about the
before
future, because you
December.
both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr.
I can
Redfield,
hear it
said it
now,
would be
Jordan.
summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words. But
Very
Dr.
softly.
Slawi, the head of
Thank you.
your Operation Warp Speed,
May be okay.
has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
it
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
it.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr.
I'd like
I
to
Slawi,
disagree with
fact
him.
check
Yeah, no, I
making
disagree
it,
with both of them.
about
And he didn't say that.
politics
He said
instead
it
of
could be there, but it could
I
also
mean,
be much sooner. I had him in my office 2
I
days
don't know
ago.
how he thinks
about
Joe
the summer
Biden
before it's generally
influencing
available,
Moderna and
just like
He said it's a
AstraZeneca.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be
He can
after
never
generally
take
available.
responsibility
No,
for
we're gonna
anything.
deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
this
delivering
is the
them.
same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by
That was
Easter
sarcasm.
this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically,
That was
you
him.
know that.
I-
That was said
And so
sarcastically.
here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about.
I mean, I've seen the
maybe
polling
having a
numbers
vaccine
recently. How does
done by the
Trump
end of the year.
have the
But
lead right now in
distribution
Florida?
of that vaccine will not
Florida.
occur
Yeah,
but
sometime
the
beginning
pandemic
in
is
the middle of next
ravaging
year.
The polling
If
averages
we get the
show
vaccine.
him
And
tight
pray God
with
we
Biden
will.
being a little
Pray
bit
God
ahead.
we will.
Mr. Vice President,
Any
I want to
individual
pick up,
poll
the,
will have the vaccine
I want to
different,
pick up
but,
on this question, though.
I
You say the
always use
public
538
can
polling
trust the
averages
scientists, but
because
they
they
can't trust
aggregate a
President
bunch of
Trump. In
polls,
fact, you
and
said
it's
that
just
again
Biden is
tonight.
like
Your running
a
mate,
small
Senator
number
Harris,
ahead.
goes further, saying the public
Okay,
health
yeah, I think
experts,
it's
quote,
within them.
will be muzzled,
Mm-hmm.
will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already
I'll
show
also say
that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it,
Yes, but
targets
are you and your running
of
mate,
a
Senator
lot of
Harris,
disinformation
contributing to that
campaigns,
fear?
and
No more than
unfortunately,
the question you just asked him. You
it's
pointed
working
out.
down there.
He
That's
puts
why I'm
pressure.
phone
He
banking and
disagrees with
for
his own
Florida this
scientists.
weekend.
But you're saying
Especially
that
with the
Senator
Cuban,
Harris is saying you
Cuban
can't
Americans
trust the
and
scientists.
Venezuelan
No,
Americans.
you can't trust the scientists.
His
She
socialist
didn't say
Yes.
that. You
attacks
can't
Right.
are
trust
She
more
said the
valuable.
public health
did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled.
I did a
will be
podcast this
Well,
morning, and
that's
the
what he's gonna
host was
try to
telling me
do,
that
but
his
there's
brother-in-law
millions of
living in
scientists,
Venezuela was
thousands of
sending him
scientists out there, like here at this great
memes
hospital
with misinformation
that
via
don't work
WhatsApp
for him.
that were
Their
all
job
full
doesn't
of
depend on
lies.
him. That's not.
And he's sharing
they're
them with
the
people in the US.
And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
in fact,
scientists that are
Anytime
in
you ever
charge.
By the way,
They will have
mention
the vaccine
socialism.
very soon.
Venezuela!
do you believe for a moment what he's
Well,
telling you
that's-
in
I
light
wish
of
that
all
Biden would
the
highlight
lies
that,
he's told you,
you know,
about
use these words
the
against
whole
them. I
issue
mean, it's
relating
we're,
to COVID.
the Republicans
He still
socialize
hasn't
all
even
the senators
acknowledged
and everybody.
that
I mean, that's
he
what
knew
this is all
this
about,
was
right?
happening,
Socialism
knew
for the
how
wealthy,
dangerous it was going to
socialism
be
for the
back in
corporations. So,
February,
I mean, that
and
should
he
be the talking
didn't
point all
even
day.
tell you.
Yeah.
That's
He's
like-
on record as saying it. He
We're
panicked,
much
or he just looked at the
more
stock market.
divided
One of the
by
two.
class
Because guess
than
what?
nationality
A lot of people
or
die,
race.
and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word
You guys noticed though on 538
So
that
you
how
said
when the
you won went to
COVID
Delaware
numbers
State,
have
but you
kind of
forgot
gone
the name
down
of
a
your
little
Was
bit.
Trump
college.
saying here?
You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated. either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about music. 47 years
Jordan,
you've
can
done
you
Let's
make
have
yours?
this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had
Thank
the
you.
charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
see,
and
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
If you look at the growth
It's
charts, you
going
can
up
see
fast.
the way that
Okay.
it grew
When it
from the
comes to
Obama
how
economy
the virus has
until
been
he crashed
handled
it
so
when COVID
far,
came.
the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as
I will
with
point
the
out, he keeps
sanitation
talking
they
about,
need.
like,
You
saying
have to
he doesn't have
provide
a
them
Nancy
plan,
with-
but he's not
Okay?
really talking about
Well, he's just
what he would do.
shushing.
He's really attacking
Nancy
Trump a lot.
Pelosi.
He's not
And
doing
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer,
I
they
was
have a
on
plan.
his
He
website
won't
earlier,
even meet with them.
and his
The
COVID plan
Republicans won't meet with
sets
them in the
out
Senate.
like
But
goals,
he sits
but it doesn't
in
have
his
that
golf
many
course.
specific.
I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably
things like
think
numbers,
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What
Just
about this
go
question
say,
of
like,
reopenings
millions of
and the
tests.
fact
Well,
Say
he
how
wants
many
to shut
millions
down this
or
country.
things like that.
And I want to keep it open.
That is an
And we
area
did
where
a great
He just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
All
Joe.
of
Let me
it.
shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found
Yeah, I mean, it can't be
elderly
a
people with
coincidence
heart
that the
problems
top
and
3
diabetes
countries
and
in the
different
world for
problems are
cases and
very,
deaths
very
just happen to be
vulnerable. We
led
learned
by
a lot.
fascists.
Young children aren't. Even younger
Trump
people
and
aren't.
Modi
We've learned a
and
lot.
Bolsonaro
But he
and
wants to
India
shut
and
it down.
Brazil, the United
More
States,
people
obviously.
will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look
Right,
at certain
and
states
you might even
that
be
have been
able to
shut
put
down,
Putin
they
in
have
that
Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they shut
they're
down
not
is because they
doing
want to keep it
better.
shut down until after the election
All right,
on November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I've
subject.
got to respond.
But those states,
I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social
But he doesn't have a
distancing
mask
and all
on
of the
currently.
things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
They did
Okay, let me ask-
say,
I don't
hear earlier
wear
that they were
masks like him.
testing
Every time
everyone
you
that
see
was
him, he's
in
got
the
a mask.
debate
He could be
arena.
speaking 200 feet
I don't
away
think
from it.
there's
He
much
shows up with the
danger in
biggest
that
mask
arena.
I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said the opposite.
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to ask
that.
you, we got
Fauci
very
said that.
a minute left in this
Masks
segment.
Dr.
are
Fauci
not
said they were
good.
unnecessary
Then he
at
changed
the
his
very
mind. He said
beginning
masks
when we didn't know
I'm
okay
anything
with
yet.
masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
against
one
that
last
when we learn more.
subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned.
Yeah, they were
Trump,
worried
you're
about
holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
What's true? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not
hangars,
worried
and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, every
Bob, he also
and
said
literally on 24 hours
masks that
notice.
weren't N95s
And Joe does
were
the
probably
circles
and
has
very
3 people
ineffective.
someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes,
the
sir.
That was the common knowledge of the
We've
very
had no
beginning.
problems at our rallies, except Herman Cain died.
Question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
Did you guys hear
No
about
negative
Sturgis?
No negative effect.
We've had no negative
How
effect,
much
and
that
we've had
spread the virus?
35, 40,000
All right,
people
you wanna
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally
60%
irresponsible.
of all
the
counties
way
in
which he
America
has
have at least
handled
one person that attended.
the social distancing and people wearing
Was
masks.
that the bicycle
basically
rally, the
encouraging
bike
not to.
rally?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then he's a fool.
If you could
Yeah,
get
sorry.
the crowds, you would have
That's
done the
fine, I
same
don't care.
thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
It has two
Can we
wheels.
move
Come
to
on.
the
cares?
Gentlemen, can we move
Yeah,
on to the
Drew,
economy?
Yes.
And
The
it ended up drawing
economy
500,000 people.
Is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the
It always
plague
goes
came
back
in, we
to,
closed it
well, we
down, which
closed
was very
travel
hard
from China. It doesn't
psychologically
matter.
to
The
do. He
virus
didn't think
was
we should
already
close it down, and he was
It
wrong.
was already spreading in New
Again,
York
2
and in
million
Washington.
people would be dead now.
There's
Instead
already
of
community
here
spread.
below-
204,000 people
Also, it
is
came
too
to
much
New
for
York
one
from
person.
Europe.
It's
Calling
too
it the
much.
China
Should have
plague.
never happened from China.
Right.
But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening.
Idiotic.
And we're doing record
It's the one
business.
thing he has to work
We
on,
had
though.
10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting
Stay with
people.
that.
People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce. Look at what's going on
Does
with
anyone know what state he
alcoholism
was
and drugs.
referring to
It's a
there?
very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in
Oregon
America.
he's talking about,
How well are you
where
doing?
they've
This guy
been doing
paid
2
a
months at a
total of
time extensions.
$750 in tax cuts.
Sir, wait, no,
extension.
sir, it's
It's
his
the wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, They were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing.
also going
They're
to mail
closing.
masks to everyone.
1 in 6 is now
I've been
gone.
the-
He
I
ought to
got
get
mixed.
on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their
Yeah,
schools.
I don't know how you're going to
people
reopen
want their
schools
schools
and
open.
force
They don't
children
want to
to
be
wear
shut down.
masks.
They don't
Because
want
if
their
you've
schools
met
shut down.
children,
They want their restaurants. I look at
you'll
New
know
York.
that
It's
this
so
is not
sad
exactly
what's happening in New York. It's
where
almost like a
they don't
ghost town.
wear.
And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their
So, you
places
kids,
open.
how has it
They
been
want to get
getting your
back to
kids
their
to wear
lives.
masks?
They'll
Want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football.
You know what?
By the way, I
My
brought back
daughter,
Big Ten
5 years
football.
old,
It was me, and
she
I'm
can
very
wear the
happy to
mask
do it.
even in the
All
car when
people
she's
of
not supposed
Ohio
to.
are
She
very
forgets that
proud
it's
of
there.
me, and you know how
It
I
took
got
her
that?
a day
What's
to
the
get used to
testimony?
it. It wasn't that hard. I was trying to make her wear the mask while we played at home.
As you well know, there's
And
a
then
new
the first day
report
that we
in
took her
2016,
to
the year you were
socially
elected president,
distanced
and 2017,
summer camp, she
your
got
first
it,
year
and
as
that was
president,
it.
that you
It's very
paid
easy.
$750 a year in federal income tax each of those
However,
years.
you do need a lot of adults
I know that
controlling
you
what the
pay
kids do, and
a lot
the
of
social
other taxes,
distancing
but I'm
between
asking
kids
you
is
the specific
impossible.
Question.
It is
that
impossible.
You pay $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars.
Schools can't
in
control
income
lice
tax.
outbreaks, much
And
less
let me
COVID
just tell you,
outbreaks.
there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million
Exactly.
1 year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do,
He's been saying
go
that
to
for
the
5
Board of
years.
Elections.
He's
There's
been
a
under
118
audit for
page or
5
so
years
report
now.
that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have.
He has, you're right.
I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking you a
company.
specific
All the data we
question,
have
which
now.
is-
Let me tell you.
I
shows
understand
him
all
not
of that.
paying
I
taxes,
understand all of that.
But let me-
No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Also,
I'm
all the
asking you a
data we
question.
have shows that
Will
rich
you
people
tell
don't
us
really
how
get
much
audited.
you paid in federal
The
income
most
taxes
audited
in
county in
2016
America
and
is a
2017?
rural black
Millions of
county
dollars.
in
You
Mississippi.
paid millions of dollars?
and not
Millions
New
of
York.
dollars,
So not
yes.
seven
Because they
Millions
audit
of dollars,
people for
and you'll
using
get
the
to see
earned
it.
income
And
tax
you'll get
credit.
to
I
see
just
it.
heard that
But
earlier
let me
today.
just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something.
Yeah,
that
it doesn't surprise me. I
it was
heard the
the
black
tax
and brown
laws.
communities
I don't want to pay
get
tax.
audited the most.
Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts. And make sure that we
That was
invest
one of
in
the points
people
that I
who,
was
in
thinking
fact,
earlier that Trump
need
really
help.
needed to
People
get on
out
if he was
there
going to get
need
Biden.
help.
Like
Why
Biden's
didn't
been
you do
there
it over
the whole
20
time.
the last
He's been-
25 years?
Because you
Why
weren't
didn't you
president.
do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including
Gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what as the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Do not call it during the free market.
That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted. Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
Blew it. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We did not.
Standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right,
let him back.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back.
Best year in what? Define best year.
He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
true. Many car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having that.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity,
we just found out how much
the
money
mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million? What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got
$3.5
million.
USA Today reports that Trump fell short
Mr.
of
President,
manufacturing goals.
It's an open discussion.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position is
Mr. President, please
thoroughly discredited by everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone, has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the
President,
people who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under,
You got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like
honorably.
to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job.
The,
With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say,
You get
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
I
This
think you're right,
let me
Bonnie.
just tell you,
Defensive
No.
myth.
Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
Never
That
looks,
is
never
simply-
plays
Why did
well.
he
Not true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already...
family,
No, let him go.
my
Yeah,
family
definitely see what
owes
you
a
mean.
fortune
He's trying to
to coming
bully
down
him
and
around.
helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead.
government.
And that's such a...
right
that's
here.
a-
Mr.
that's such
Every
a great...
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't...
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the
Alternatively,
American
putting Trump
people.
on the
It's
defensive
about you.
will
That's what we're
undermine his
talking
image.
about.
should
here.
All right,
It's
that's
not
the,
about
end
here.
of, that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest?
Uh,
It's a very important
regardless
Try to be
question.
honest.
I
He
think
stood
this
up.
is-
He stood up.
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion
Sir,
if you don't
That
get rid of
is
the trust.
You know what? You're
absolutely not
stop.
You're on
true.
tape doing it.
You're going to
You're on
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but
on
it seems
tape.
to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have
Say whatever you
six
want. I
segments.
don't
We have
care.
ended that
It's been
segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr.
Chris Wallace
President, you can
feels
say
like
anything you
a
want.
frustrated parent.
I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
does
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your
Possible
opponent
exception.
to deal with the race issues facing this country over the
Definitely
next
more
4
than
years?
Lyndon
Vice
Johnson
President
signed the
Biden, you
Civil
go
Rights
first.
Act, right?
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed.
Not publicly.
And they asked
anyway.
the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever
Finish
said
the
anything
statement.
like that.
Finish the statement.
It is who's
Now,
who
second-
minutes, sir.
Second point I'd make to you is
The idea that
when
there's never been a racist
Floyd was
president
killed, when
is
Mr.
just
Floyd was killed,
insane.
there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House.
So there's never
What
been.
did he
Oh,
do?
there certainly
He came
have
out
been
of his bunker,
many.
had the military use tear gas on them so he could walk across
imagine that
to a
anyone would say
church
there's
and hold
never
up the
been a
Bible.
racist president.
And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church
Lots of
said
presidents
that
owned
it was
slaves.
a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people
It's
at
a
all.
crazy position to
This is a
take.
president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that
The
you
crime
have
bill
treated
was
the
bad, but I don't
African
believe he ever
American
specified.
population
I don't believe he
community.
ever
You
said
have
that he
treated the
called
black
African
community
Americans when he
about
said
as
super
bad as
predators.
anybody in this
The crime bill-
country. You did the
No.
1990, and that's why if you look at the
But he
polls,
has
I'm
also
doing better
denounced
than any
many parts of
Republican
that
has done
crime
in a
bill since
long
then.
time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any
I don't know about you
enforcement.
guys,
You can't even
but
say
my
the word law
leftist,
enforcement because if you
socialist,
say
and
those
anarchist
words,
friends
you're going to lose all
are
of your
not,
radical left
they're
supporters.
just not
And
Biden's
why aren't you
force.
saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they
So-
called us in Portland, we
So
would put out that
Biden
fire
can
in
go
a
ahead
half
and
an
talk
hour,
about
but
law
they won't do
enforcement.
it
He's
because
not-
they're run
he's
by
not gonna
radical
use
left
his
Democrats.
radical left
If you look
people.
at Chicago, if you look
It's a
at
pretty
any
tough
I cannot
place,
find
you wanna look,
anything.
Seattle. They heard we were coming in the following day, and they
that
put up
Sylvia?
their hands, and we got back Seattle.
I
Minneapolis,
can't find
we
anything
got it back,
about
Joe, because
Portland
you
sheriff
believe in law and
backing
order,
Trump
but you don't.
in the news. If
The
anybody
top 10
can,
cities
let me
and
know.
just about the
Is that not
top
real?
40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical
Trying to
left.
find it.
And they've
Hold
got
on.
you wrapped around their finger, Joe,
Order
to
talk.
a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could
There's
be
search in Google
equally
News for
applied in
Portland sheriff
America. Do
endorses
you
Trump and
believe
nothing's coming
that there
up.
is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice
Yep.
in this country, in
Alright.
education,
So-
at work,
so you
and in
made that up. That's
law
beautiful.
enforcement, and the way in which it's enforced. But look,
I did
the vast
find
majority of police
veteran who
officers
voted
are
for
good,
Trump now
decent,
backs
honorable
Biden
men and
after
women.
wife dies of
They risk their lives every
COVID-19.
day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to
Man, I
be
was
held
saying
accountable. They
it's
have
a
to be
hard
held
sell
accountable.
to sell
And what
Biden
I'm going
as
to do as
Antifa
President of the
general.
United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see
Wonder
what
if
happened
Biden would
to
say like
George Floyd.
pro-fascist for
These
Trump.
cops aren't happy to see
I
what
wonder how
happened
long it's
to
going to take for
Breonna
Trump
Taylor.
to say he wants to defund
Most
the
don't
police.
like it, but
The
we
guy who wrote
have
the
to
crime
have a
bill.
system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right, Ms.
What is peaceful
President-
protest? When they run through the middle of a town
President Trump-
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
protest.
Is that a real
I'm not
question?
asking
But you
Is the
say
criminal
it is.
justice
I
system
did not
fair
say
to
I'd like to
African
continue with the
Americans?
issue
We know
of
the
race.
answer
I
to
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I was
I
in
ended
the
it because
military.
it's
It wasn't
racist.
that
I ended
radical,
it
so-
because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical
I don't know how
revolution that was
race
taking
sensitivity
place in
training
our
is
military,
racist.
in our
It
schools,
was a fucking PowerPoint.
all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
No
we have to
one's
go
teaching
back
anybody
to the
to hate
core
America.
values.
He's
of this
talking about
country.
PowerPoints
They
in
were
like the
teaching
FBI and the
people
Department
that our
of
country
Defense
is a
and stuff,
horrible
that they were
place. It's a
apparently teaching
racist
people how to
place,
hate our
and they were
country.
teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to
I was
happen.
Vice President
Coast Guard, which is
Biden?
regulated by the
Nobody's
Department
doing
of
that.
Homeland
He's
Security,
just,
and it
he's
was
racist.
nothing like
Here's the
he
deal.
said.
I know a lot more about
You
this
don't
than you
need
do.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President, President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order. And you still haven't mentioned. Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're now. Mr. President, you're going to. Mr. President, Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything. The numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like in
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised. I was raised in the suburbs.
Right, and
This is not 1950.
if there's
All
any
these dog
uptick in
whistles
crime
and
right now,
racism
it's
don't work
related to
anymore.
poverty.
Suburbs are by and large
as
integrated.
relationship to the
There's many
pandemic.
people today driving their kids to
We're
soccer
about to lose
practice
our
and
homes
or
by
to
making rents
black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded.
they're also
They're being
dying in
burned
the
out
cities and in the
because
rural
his
areas.
refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, What I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face.
It's a very euphemistic
And I'm
way
not
to say
totally
defund the
opposed
police.
to defunding the police offices. As a matter of fact, local police. The only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
never
Look, who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Yes,
All right.
police groups.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
I think, gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the moderator's
I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get
I'm
to
looking at
another
a Daily
subject,
Mail article
which is the issue of
called,
protests in many
US
cities
election 2020
that have turned
Joe Biden
violent. In
endorsed by law
Portland,
enforcement
Oregon,
chiefs.
especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree with, talk about peaceful protests.
There's not
Many
one.
of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the
Colorado,
Democratic
Michigan,
nominee, and
Arizona.
earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party
He's
right
amassed
now.
endorsements from
Have you
more
ever
than
called the
190
Democratic mayor of
sheriffs,
Portland or the
prosecutors, and
Democratic
attorneys
governor of
general?
Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the thing.
I sent in the
I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals
question.
to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and
Yeah, that was an
chaos and
extrajudicial
violence help us
murder, by the
cause.
way.
That's what this is all about.
I don't know.
I have
I
a
do.
segment about that in my,
On that,
my
Antifa
weekly
Kellyanne
videos.
Conway.
I don't
Yeah.
think she said
She said that. And so here's
Reports
the,
are that he was
here's the point.
unarmed and that they
The
shot
point
him
is
without
that
giving any commands
That's what he is
or
trying to rile
warnings.
everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
His
repeatedly.
statement. Wait,
you have
just 1 second.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
Asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it. and
You know,
we
if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats.
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send in
no,
the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no
Attention,
problem.
Chris.
But they don't
He
want to
might say
accept the
yes.
National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do
specifically
that, but
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Yeah,
people.
never
do
mind
it, sir.
behind
Say
a
it,
truck
do
full
it,
of
say it.
So he has not yet.
train of trucks with
What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who
white
does think they can do it?
supremacists and right wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
He still
This
has
is
not
a
done.
left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
the threat
left-wing
of
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not militia. That's what his
Did
you really expect him to?
His FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
No,
He's wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
gives
moving.
you
Bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head. That's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration
Yeah, the idea
tells you the
that-
truth
the
is
idea
a bad
that
idea.
Antifa is
Can I tell you what?
You have no
organized.
ideas.
Antifa Antifa is a
Just
dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now
more of
moving
an
on to the Trump and
ideology.
Biden
Yeah.
records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president,
seconds.
I'm
I
going to
have a
ask
whole
a question.
video about it.
Yeah.
When the president seeks a second term,
Who isn't a terrorist?
it is generally a referendum
really
on his
honest.
record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices.
Yeah,
That
I wouldn't call that a good thing, but
the likes of
with
which
the
very
judges
few
he's
people.
appointing,
And you know
though.
one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party,
That's true. That's
because they have a
very
little different
annoying.
philosophy, I'd say
Trying
if
to
you
look that
left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker.
So the
poor,
real number is
more divided,
105
and more
because
violent.
Senate
When I
refused
was
to confirm them.
vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
And-
$3.5 million.
And by the way, my son,
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
he never keeps his word. Can
Because-
you add back
No,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That was a
Side note,
rhetorical
I'm-
question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
Way
30
over
seconds?
Yeah,
Russiagate.
yes, you may have.
All right.
Trump
Go ahead.
just sent more
So,
troops into Syria.
thirdly,
Against
we're
Russia.
poor. The billionaires
now?
have gotten much
I
more
don't
wealthy
buy that.
by a tune of over $300 to $400
Recently.
billion more just since COVID.
In the last couple of days,
You in the
honestly.
home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out
Does U.S.
dishonorably
believe
discharged
Hunter
for cocaine
double
use,
check that.
and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in
Dishonorable
Moscow,
That
discharge.
is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
my son,
And he didn't have a
my
job.
son, like a lot of people, like
Hunter
a lot
was
of
in the
people we know at
Navy
home,
for a year.
had a drug problem.
me go
He's
into-
overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm proud of him.
But why was
I'm
he
proud of my
given
son.
tens of millions
All right,
of
he wasn't
dollars?
given
Right,
tens of
because
millions of
he was
dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
been totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been
Totally
Hunter
discredited.
knows how to party.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment
someone
call here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay,
from
great.
the
Let's talk
mayor
about
of Moscow,
Let's talk
That is
about
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for
You cut
political
out. What was
reasons.
that?
you know, I'd like to
I
talk about
said,
climate
I think
change.
I've
So
heard
would I.
reports before about
Okay.
that Hunter.
The
Biden
forest fires in the West
had
are
problems with
raging now.
addiction in
They
the
have
past.
burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of
I
thousands
mean, it makes
of people.
sense, right?
When state officials
You're a
there
politician's
blame the
son, I
fires
think
on climate
probably
change, Mr.
Trump-
President,
the
you
Trump-
said, I don't
Trump
think
Jr. definitely
the
has the
science,
same issue.
No.
Did you see
Over
any
your
of the
4
RNC?
years, you
I
have
saw that-
pulled
yeah, I
the
saw
U.S. out of the
Biden- or,
Paris Climate
Biden's
Accord.
Trump
You have
Jr.
rolled
speech,
back
the
a number
RNC
of
that everyone's
Obama
talking about.
environmental records. What
Him
do you
and his
believe
girlfriend.
about the
I think
science
she was
of
even higher
climate
than him.
change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water
So he is
and air.
asking
I
a
want
climate change
beautiful,
question.
clean air. We have
Good.
now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our
How
businesses.
did that happen?
Our businesses aren't put out of commission.
Yeah,
if
ask
you
Trump
look
what
at
he'll
the
do to
Paris
address
Accord, it
climate
was a
change in the next
disaster
4
from our
years.
standpoint. And people are actually
I heard
very
that
happy about
correctly.
what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else.
So
The
yeah, we
forest
just need to
floors
are
are
sweep our
loaded up with
forests. Remember?
trees, dead trees
Forest
that are
management
years
is
old
an
and they're like
issue, but
tinder.
also it's hotter and
leaves
drier
and everything
every
else.
single
You
year,
drop
and
a
that
cigarette
makes
in there, the
easier
whole
for
forest
fires
burns
to
down.
spread.
You've got to have forest
What
management.
do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the
My favorite
science
was when
of
he
climate
compared
change?
California to Finland.
I believe that we have to do
California does
everything
have
we can to have
massive
immaculate
wildfires,
air,
even going back to,
immaculate
like,
water,
Casey.
and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting a
Well,
billion
yeah,
trees.
forest
the
management
billion
is when
tree
you let it all
project,
burn
and
down.
It's very
There's
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot of people.
that
Well, you
human
have to burn some.
pollution,
That was the reason we
gas,
had the Great
greenhouse
Bob
gas
McConnell
emissions
makes a good point
contributes to
that
the global
most of the
warming of
I
fires
think
the
a
on
lot of things
federal
do, but I think
land
to an
managed
extent,
by
yes.
Trump's
I think to an
government
extent,
also.
yes. But I also think
Thank you for
we have to
reminding
do
us
better
of that.
management of our forests. Every year,
60%
I
of
get the
forested
call,
land in California is
California's
controlled by
burning.
feds.
California's burning. If
We
that
talk a
was
lot about
clean,
wildfire.
if that were,
Yeah.
if you had
We talk a lot
forest
about fires
management,
in our
good
channel.
forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major
Europe
country.
also isn't
It's a
nearly as
forest
hot
city.
or dry as
He
California
said, "Sir,
is.
we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem." I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land
Even
just
though
burned
that's
to the
what
ground.
happens every
That's
year.
burning
You
down
just
because of a
direct
lack
around
of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there
Yeah,
that are 10, 12 years old. If you
And
did
that
that,
also
the car would be
drives
safer.
emissions.
It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California,
Your
they simply
justification
No, but you
ignored
would
for
take
why
a lot
it
of
doesn't
cars
drive
off the
emissions,
market
that
because
are
people
buying
would be
more
able to afford a
gas-powered cars.
car.
That doesn't make any
Now,
sense.
so, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric
Okay,
cars.
I've
I've
been
given
working
big
on cars.
incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just
All right,
crazy.
and Trump officially
Vice President
no
Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one.
There are multiple
Number
studies
two,
confirm that
in fact, when
not
during
addressing
our
climate
administration,
change
the
is far
Recovery
more
Act, I was
expensive
able
than
to, I was in
addressing
charge,
it.
able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas.
Yeah, I mean, I
and
would
oil.
argue that
Nobody's
nothing
going to
really
build
matters
another
if we don't solve
coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able
It's
to
already
take
moving
the
that way anyway.
federal fleet and turn
Renewable
it into a
energy is
fleet
getting
that's
cheaper
run
than
on
fossil fuels
their electric
gradually.
vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to
Just
put
need to speed that up.
500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do
Here's a
now
fun
to
fact
create
about,
thousands and thousands of jobs.
500,000
We can
charging
get to
stations.
net
There's
zero
only
in terms of energy
117,000 gas
production
stations in
by
America right now.
2035. Not
So
only
he's-
not costing people
he's
jobs,
proposing to build
creating jobs,
significantly
creating
more charging
millions of
stations than there
good-paying
even are gas
jobs.
stations
Not
right now.
$15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship
It might be too late
with
for the
foreign
Paris
policy.
Climate Accords.
Brazil, the
Those
rainforests of
probably
Brazil
aren't
are
enough
being
anymore.
torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of
Do
the
you guys
world
support the
coming
Green
up
New
with
Deal?
$20 billion and say,
I do.
here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Where airplanes are out of
Wait a minute,
business,
sir.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want to
true.
take out the cows too.
Not
That's not
true.
true either, right?
Not
This is
true.
a
Oh, we're back
this is
to
a
banning cows.
100 trillion.
Look,
That's more money than
that
our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going.
the case.
All right, let me
destroy
because
The
our
Green New
because I
Deal
actually-
actually
wait a
doesn't
minute, sir.
mention
I actually
cows or cattle
studied
or
your
livestock
plan, and it
or any
includes
such
upgrading
thing.
4 million buildings,
I
weatherizing
did a
2
video
million
where I did a
homes over 4
control
years,
F through the whole
building
thing, and the
1.5
word's not
million
even in there.
energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying
trillion.
jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100
They-
billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that
That's
at all.
he did.
He
say
did.
Made it up.
And here's the deal.
At least it was
Make up a
reported.
We
He
are
didn't
going
say
to
it
be
on
in a
camera.
position where
There was
we can
reporting.
create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happening just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild
It's not something to
anything
brag
about
about,
it.
Joe.
Gentlemen,
He made a statement about the
But he
military.
does
He
keep-
said I said something
he talks
about the
about
military.
Medicare for all,
He and
Green
his
New Deal.
friends
If
made it up, and then they went
Someone
with
in the
it. I
comments
never
earlier
said
said
it.
he
Okay.
thinks he's
What
going
he
to
did,
be
Sir,
first.
you're
he
done in
said-
this segment.
He called the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid bastards.
Please,
He
sir,
said it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play
to the
Stop.
military.
Play it.
go ahead. Mr.
You're on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final
Ian, it
question
seems
is,
like-
I can't remember which of
I
all the
thought for
branches.
sure Trump
You know,
would try to
too
keep
much.
I'm having a little trouble
Bernie's
myself, but
supporters away from Biden.
and
Instead,
about
he
the
just
economy
keeps
and about this
driving
question of
towards
what it's
Biden,
going to
it feels
cost.
like.
Yeah, he's
The
like he's almost
economy.
trying to
I
I mean, the
convince
Green New
progressives
Deal
that
and the
Biden's
idea of what
progressive and he
your
is.
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal-
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay
Oh, I
for
don't
think-
itself as we
think
move
he's just
forward.
going for the
We're not going to
right-wing-
build plants that, in
the right-wing
fact,
crowd.
Playing
are
to the base.
great polluting
I mean,
plants.
Could you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Thinks he
Do you
can
support
win
No,
at
I don't
all,
support
or
the
if
Green
he's
New
just
Deal.
kind of setting
Oh,
himself
well,
up
that's a
to
big
win on
statement.
TV or
I
something.
support the
You just
Biden-
lost
the radical
I
left.
think
I
he's
support,
riding the
I
momentum and he doesn't
support
see
the
it. He
Biden
doesn't see that
plan
it's about
that I put forward.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
he
Biden
only
plan,
appeals
which
to
is
his base.
different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.
He's hoping he can play on.
Because I was
Election
one of the
integrity.
people
As
that
we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or
I
going
mean,
to
at this
vote
point, the
early.
enthusiasm's a bad
How
thing for
confident
Trump. I mean,
should we be
Democrats
that
can get
this
more
will be a
enthusiastic,
fair
it's a good
election?
thing to
And
think,
what
but
are you
Trumpists,
prepared
when
to
they're
do
already foaming
over
at
the next
mouth and more
5
enthusiasms,
plus weeks?
I mean,
Because
people
it'll
think
not only
they're
be
rabid,
election
you know what I
day, but
mean?
also
Like,
counting some ballots,
I don't know, I
mail-in
mean, I
ballots
just think
after election day.
people seem
What are you
hysterical at times.
prepared to do
So
to
it's-
reassure the
Yeah.
American people
Yeah.
I
that the
think
next
calming them
president
down, having them
will be the
reasonable
legitimate
this 1
winner
month before
of
the
this
would
election?
actually do
In this
more
final
to
segment,
win the election
Mr. Vice
for
President,
Trump,
you go
but-
first.
So
You're
what do you
really
prepared to
taking
do
the
to
approach
reassure the
of
American people
iwillvote.com.
for the election?
Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to
opening
vote.
talks, like
His own
getting a
Homeland
solid
Security
conversation
Director
going,
and
not
as well as
just
the FBI
name
Director
calling
says
and
there
more
was no
fucking
evidence at
spotlight,
all that mail-in
finger
ballots
pointing,
are a
this and
source
that, and blame.
of being manipulated.
To actually
and
have a
cheated.
discourse,
They
be
said
able to
that.
act like
The fact is that there are going to be
responsible
millions
adult
of
to run
people because of
you know,
COVID
whole
that are going to
country.
be voting by mail-in
Instead,
ballots,
we're
like he
having
does, by the way.
what the
He sits
people-
behind the
two
Resolute
kindergartners
desk and
having
sends his
that
ballot
she
to
said
Florida.
fit
Number
to the
one.
teacher.
Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are
I mean,
able to
honestly,
vote because
Wallace
enough
is the
poll
only one who
watchers
looks
are
good
there
tonight,
to
and
make sure they
even
can
he hasn't
socially
looked perfect,
distance.
but-
The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote,
Several
vote,
states
vote.
have already
If you're
started
able to
voting.
vote early in your state, vote early.
In
If you're
California,
able to
last
vote
election,
in
didn't
person,
count any
vote
of
in
the
person,
actual votes
vote whatever
for the
way is the
electoral
best
college
way
voting,
for you.
so it's
Because
pretty
you
much-
will, he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this
I
election.
think over 1 million
And in
people have
terms of
already
whether or
voted.
not, when the votes are
Really?
counted,
Yeah, I
and they're
heard
all
that.
counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept,
Wait,
let me
didn't he
tell
say
you
the other
something.
day
It
if
doesn't
he
matter.
loses, he might not
Because if
accept
we
the
get
results of the
votes,
election?
it's
He
going to
did
be
say
all
that
over. He's going to
multiple
go.
times.
He can't stay in power.
Being
It
on
won't
Hillary
happen.
about that
It won't
immediately
happen.
after the
So
election
vote.
when she said
Just make
something
sure
similar,
you
like, he went
understand
on about
you have it
but
in your
like
control
3
to
weeks, if I
determine
remember right.
what this country's going to look like the
Trump
next
said
4
that
years.
in 2016, and he's
Is
also
it going
said
to
it in
change?
this
Or you get
election.
4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So
There's a lot of
I
projection
listened
in
to
the show.
Joe talking about a transition.
There's a lot of
There's been no
options.
transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that.
Remember, he
because
said
we
he was
caught you
going to
in a
sue all
sense.
the
And
women that accused him
President
of sexual
Obama
assault
was sitting
too.
in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots
So
are
everyone's
concerned,
saying
it's a
all that stuff
disaster.
involving Flynn.
Solicited
was-
ballot. Okay,
first of all,
solicited
heavily
is okay.
exaggerated by
You're
Trump.
soliciting. You're
And
asking. They
also
send it back. You send
within
it
the
back.
bounds of the law.
I did that. If you have an
fact,
unsolicited, they're
in
sending
one of the
millions of
emails,
ballots all over the
Susan
country.
Rice
There's
ordered
fraud.
the,
They found
people
them in
involved to
freaks.
make sure
They
everything
found
was
some with
by
the
the
name
book.
Trump. Just happened to have the name Trump
The
just
entire
the other day in a
Obamagate
waste
scandal is a
paper
made-up
basket.
thing
They're being
that he
sent
can't
all
even
over the
articulate
place.
himself
They
with
sent
that.
2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other
just
thing,
repeats whatever
it's
he
nice
hears on Fox
November
News.
3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what?
People
we
are
won't
really
know. We
happy
might
with the
not know
job
for
that we've
months
done.
because these
Yeah,
ballots are
somehow
going to be
got
all
back
over.
a little bit.
Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where
Maybe
they
you
say
saw-
you have to have your ballot in by November 10th?
What I've seen
November
is that
10th.
voters
That
in
means
general
that's
trust
7 days after
with
the
the,
election, in
trust
theory,
Trump
But
should
it
have
has
been
to be
announced. We have
postmarked
major
by
states with
election
that.
day. He's not
All run
mentioning
by
that.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by
You're-
Democrats. It's
President
a fraud.
Trump,
It's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged,
Actually,
that it's going
quite
to
a few
lead
of
to
the
fraud.
states
But in
that are using mail-in
2018,
balloting
in the
are run
last
by
midterm election,
Republicans.
31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1%
Wasn't she
of the
wasn't she
ballots for
sitting on the
2016
Florida Supreme
were
Court in the 2000
invalidated.
decision with
They
Bush
take
and
them.
Gore?
We don't like them. We don't
I
like
don't
them.
know
We
that.
throw
What
them
do
out
about
left
if there
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now?
do is you go and vote.
Let me
You
look it
do
up.
a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I
okay,
know
or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
What's the
You
question?
go and vote. You go
Was
and
email
vote
totally
like
different?
they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either
A professor in Notre Dame,
a
yeah.
solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending.
And she
They have
was a law
mailmen
clerk
with lots
for
of it. Did you see
Antonin
what's
Scalia.
going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're
But
being
was she
sold.
involved
They're being dumped in
in that
rivers.
2000
This is a
decision
horrible
with
thing
Gore
for our
and-
country.
There is no,
This is not.
Evidence
not going
of
to
that.
end well.
I believe that was
This
the other
is not
candidate,
going
the
to end
President
well.
Cuban candidate in
States
Florida.
had
Go ahead,
mail-in
But I could
ballots
be wrong.
For the
Laguna,
last
something like that.
decade
Lagoa.
or more.
Barbara Lagoa.
Including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit
Was
the
it her,
ballot.
or
It's
was
sent
it
to you.
Barrett?
It's sent
I'm
to your
looking at
home.
now.
What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows
You're
of the
wrong.
outcome.
You're
Wait,
wrong.
wait,
I
no,
love
I
counting
want to
votes.
continue with you on
I
this.
love
Vice
counting.
She
President
first became a
Biden.
This is
judge
so
in
wrong when he
2017.
makes a
She was
statement
No,
like that.
excuse me.
For that,
Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with
Must have
mail-in
been.
voting has
Yeah,
not
maybe
been
you're thinking
fraud
of
historically. It has been that
Lagoa.
sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds
Got
of
it.
thousands
Okay.
of ballots
Cool.
are
Thanks
thrown
for looking
out
that up.
because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they
can
missed
be fraud.
the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not
I'm going to
dotting
copy
the
something
correct
from the
I.
New York Times.
Who they voted for, testify,
You throw it in the
say who
comments.
they voted for, say it's you. That
Yeah.
is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been fraud.
Mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited.
I was in Miami when
law,
the
8 states
Elian Gonzalez
from
was
even
there.
beginning the
It was crazy.
Ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped. These people aren't equipped.
That was 8 frickin' ballots.
Number 2,
or
they
9.
cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President,
you think that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question to you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow?
Completely deflected it.
It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established
But
at all
neither did
that
Biden.
there is fraud related to mail-in ballots.
I think at the very beginning, I think that
somehow it's a fraudulent process.
yes.
It's already been established. Take
a
a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats.
Neither one of these men is going to have a horrible life if
and
they don't become
Republicans.
president.
And this guy,
I want to see an honest
Okay.
ballot
Trump
count.
might go to jail.
Will you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate.
Honest ballot
That-
count.
okay.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be
I think that's why he
continued
wants to
as
win
in more
re-election so
debates
bad.
as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half.
From everything
I want
I've
to thank
read,
you
Mueller
both
could have gone
for
a lot
participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President
the
Mike
VP
Pence
debate,
and Senator
come on.
Kamala Harris,
Standards were pretty
will debate
low.
at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you
Okay,
watch.
we're gonna need
Until
popcorn
then,
for that
thank
one.
you.
I cannot wait for
good.
Kamala to eat VP Pence.
Oh, my
Prince, this is what happens when I have too much wine. This is full of wine, and my husband refilled it halfway.
chocolate fence. Good old.
All right. Well, so what is everybody's thoughts on that? Anyone want to go?
Let's see.
How do you summarize what we just?
So who do we think won? Josh, who do you who would you say
wanna
won?
go first.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would say probably. I mean, it was a pretty mostly a draw because we got what we wanted, but I think Biden did a little better than we expected. So I'd say he actually won. I mean, how did Trump do anything other than what Trump does? I mean, Trump needed to make himself come across like he understood the situation, and he didn't do that. So I don't know.
Maybe not understood, but was in charge of.
I think that one of the mistakes that Trump made going into this was he spent those months and months and months lowering expectations for Beth. Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe was trending on Twitter a few hours ago. And he made it to the point that if Biden didn't go up there and drool all over the microphone, he was gonna meet the expectations. And so that's one thing.
Ian froze, right? Ian, you're froze. Hold on.
You lost us
Ian.
a microphone.
Restart from the drooling part.
Okay. Yeah. So he made the expectations such that if Biden didn't go up there and drool all over the microphone, he was going to look great. I think Biden scored some points. He probably gave people a better idea of him, like we were saying before. I don't know if we said this on camera or not, but a lot of people don't know who Biden is, don't know anything about him. And I think he gave people a good idea of who he is. I would have liked to see him on the defensive less, but it's good that he also put Trump on the defensive. Jordan, Max, your thought?
I mean, my expectations of this, like I said, are like pretty low already, but just the lack of the ability to let one another finish was astonishing for two supposedly grown men. I mean, obviously Biden was a lot better about it, but I definitely agree with what you said, how he's been set up to, no matter what he does, if he doesn't fall over dead on the stage, he's going to look amazing. Because the whole time Trump was, like you said, completely on the defensive. He was just looked like he was so upset about what was being said that he was unable to control himself and unable to, I think they didn't talk about a lot of important issues as so much as call the other horrible at whatever issue they happen to be talking about.
One question on climate change is insufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of deflecting, a lot of ad hominem, just not really sticking to specific policies, talking over one another. But yeah, the bar is so low. I would say overall Biden definitely edged him. He was a lot more
composed,
coherent in his responses. Trump was a lot of hyperbole and emotion.
Sylvia?
I mean, so much of the time was all of them talking over each other, and sometimes Chris Wallace saying, "Hey guys, let's stick to the point here," that I couldn't even understand. It was ridiculous.
That was a dog and pony show.
Do we
say? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, Josh?
That's a job.
Oh, sorry. I just didn't. Jordan, I wasn't getting your screen updating, so I couldn't see. So I was just going to say, I mean, for me at least, it was Trump would win kind of the old man award for the night if we do one of those each time, like who came across older, more unhinged, kind of like somebody throwing, bread loaves at birds.
Which is also the opposite of Trump's
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
Right? Do we think this is going to change anyone's mind, though?
No.
You're shaking your head no.
It's team sports. I mean, it was a tie in an NFL game. People are unsatisfied, so it's kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe a handful of people, but I know that there are still.
I think people watch this for entertainment purposes, to be honest. I mean, like you said at the beginning, people are decided, 1 million people plus already voted. They're either Trump base that want to watch their super idol crush Sleepy Joe, or the rest of the people that are like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know this one on camera, but 70% of people, according to a recent poll, said the debates will not make their decision, and 44% of people said that it will have no influence in their decision. And I know that they're undecideds, but it's so hard for me to picture someone who has looked at the last 4 years and not made up their mind yet.
Yeah.
A few of them out there. I'll be watching the polling averages and seeing if anyone gets bumped from this. I don't see it happening.
So, Ian,
Yeah.
you think Texas has any chance of flipping blue?
It's a slim chance. I wouldn't put money on it. I think it'll be one of the closest elections in a long time, but I wouldn't put money on it right now.
Yeah, I think in that direction, but you're not quite there yet.
One thing about Texas is Texas Democrats like to say that Texas isn't a red state, it's a non-voting state. And this would happen with Beto O'Rourke when he got close. Democrats said, oh, maybe we do have a chance. And so a lot more Democrats are motivated to go out and vote. They did vote in 2018. And the closer we get each time, the more Democrats stop thinking, oh, there's no way Texas can flip, and they actually go out and vote. So, knock on wood for that. But I don't see it happening this year.
Yeah. I mean, Corin, they've got us. Well, it just seems like the Senate race is getting closer, but Texas really should demand a little bit more out of its both of its senators. But it's kind of like it's such a large state, influential state, and yet it has a senator that's just like, I mean, it's kind of like talk about sleepy. I mean, it's just not representing anybody really at this point. But for better or worse, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Just seems strange to have Texas, which is so known as like shoot from the hip, to have somebody who doesn't really say much of anything running. So
well, I mean, maybe that's working for his advantage because Hagar's not doing as well as Beto did, and I think part of the reason is that people just hate Ted Cruz and they don't have as much of an opinion on John Cornyn.
Yeah.
But
that has anything to do with moving out of California?
Yeah, there's same thing in Arizona, same thing in Georgia. If people are moving out of California to go get the cheaper real estate, cheaper cost of living in Texas and Arizona and Georgia. And that's a lot of people think that's part of the reason they're getting more purple, more blue. Yeah.
Well, we have friends that are moving to Florida, not because of the cost of living here in Oregon, but because they want to be closer to family. And the cost of living where they're going in Florida is much, much, much cheaper. And this year, if anything, it proved that remote work is possible for a big percentage of the population, that a lot of the jobs can be done remotely. And you just need to get the teams used to the dynamics of remote work, and things can work just as well. And so instead of paying California prices, $4,000 of rent for a very small space in San Francisco versus, I don't know, Florida places, but much, much, much less. And you just need a good internet connection and you can get your job done.
Yeah.
What's gas prices for all you guys?
What's the question?
What's the gas prices for you?
$2 ish, 2 something.
We're up at like 3.5. 3.50.
We, my wife and I, when we moved from California to Texas, we drove because it was easier to bring all of our stuff, and that was quite a road trip. But I remember thinking that as we got closer to, I remember thinking that we should get gas in California before going into Arizona because it was closer to the ports and it would be cheaper. But that was a mistake. It was much cheaper to get gas in Arizona than it was in California.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was great talking to you guys. If you haven't already, everyone in the audience, go ahead and like the stream. Share it with your friends if you enjoyed it, and leave in the comments who you thought won the debate, what your thoughts on that were. And I'll look forward to having you again. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk with Matt Caffrey from Swing Left. Also, links are in the description for Americans for Decency's YouTube channel, for Tono Latino's YouTube channel, for the 805 Uncensored podcast. So go subscribe to those. They're all great. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ian. Everyone take care.
Thank you.